the thing that stands out the most to me about the Paralympics is not just the Paralympics. Each individual group has its own quote unquote level of athletics. They have their own group. In our case, for blindness, the United States Association of Blind Athletes, which is under the International Blind Sports Association. So we do things outside of the Paralympics. We just come together for the Paralympics or the big dance, just like all the other Olympic sports. They all come together for one big party and one big games. But individually, we all do things a little differently. On the individual level, that's when I really truly realized that my life would be the same as it was before I was sighted. The first time I went to a developmental training course, or developmental training camp for athletes, I was at the United States Olympic Training Center, and something was really weird. I had a weird feeling. It was like day number 2, number 3 when it finally hit me. And I called my supervisor at work and told her the same thing that I told my mother, which was, I found a bunch of people that are like me. It's the first time I found anybody like me. They had that same competitive nature, that same competitive attitude. They treated each other like quote unquote competitors or like dirt, like you do when you recite it. And how it stood out the most was during the first Paralympic Games I went to, the 96 Games, the track and field team, and I was on that team. Of the people that were on the team, there was 12 people on the 50-something member, 70-something member track team of various disabilities that had some form of visual impairment or blindness. And out of those 12 people, all 12 of the people were either in high school, just that was one in that case, in college, graduate school, had graduated, or were working 100% instead of the 70% unemployment rate. Now, what stood out the most of 5 of those people had either one of the 2 PhDs that were there, or that 3 people that had dual masters. And in my case, there was a number of us that just had a master and a bachelor. So out of the 7 of us, there was bachelor's, master's, or double master's or PhD. And that's when I noticed there was a certain level of desire, a certain level of competitiveness that didn't just transfer to the track or to the weight room. It transferred to the rest of their lives as well, because everybody was totally successful outside of that. And if you could query them, when they quit competing athletically, they do the same thing in their regular lives as well. So to me, the Paralympics is just a small sliver, or it's a small snapshot of people that are going to excel either way possible. And this is not the same as it is for people that are Olympians. If you check the statistics on people that are in the Paralympics that are in all sports and with all disabilities, you'll see that they have a much higher level of education and accomplishments than your regular athletes do. Very common for this to happen. As a matter of fact, my coach who graduated from Yale, my track coach, said the first time he came to the Olympic Training Center, to the training camp before the Paralympics, he said the first time he met a woman, when he got off the airport, he shook her hand. She's in a wheelchair. She's on sabbatical that semester from Stanford Medical. The other person that he's shaking, shakes her hand. She's got a prosthetic leg. She's the chef de mission. She's retired right then, but she's headed to Harvard Medical when we get back. And he's like, you just made us look like a bunch of wussies. So it's like the level of people here and how they compete, statistically, they're way ahead of what the standard would be for traditional athletes. So that's what the Paralympics mean to me. It means I'm going to be around the best people with disabilities in every aspect of their life. And the one that stands out the most is something that people never get to see, which is when they sit around and talk to each other. They treat each other like normal people, and the disabilities are not a problem. The blind people are okay with blindness. We don't want to be in a wheelchair. The people in a wheelchair, the last thing they want to do is blind. They're fine with that. They say, I can't stand being blind. No way could I do this. And it just goes around. Everybody's okay with their disability. They don't want the other one. And I'm sure if it was the other way around, they would be they would be able to deal with it, or they would be okay with it. So it's more of a personal attitude. So that's what I encounter when I'm around anyone that says Paralympian.
Anything else you have to say about the Paralympics?
It's a big party. It's no different than the other big party. It's the same with people with disabilities, a big party.
So you had fun?
Oh, every time. It's the relationships you get from it all around the world are just lifelong relationships. Like I have one guy for 3 games. I mean, Franz is Canadian, French Canadian as a matter of fact. And it was our goal to always pin the other one. Olympic pins, trading pins.
Sure.
We didn't trade pins with each other. Our goal was to give the other one a better pin, to make the guy look bad because you gave him a better pin. So your goal was to get the best pin and give it to him as a gift. So it's those types of relationship, which is why to this day I have the personal Paralympic pin from the Prime Minister of New Zealand. That's the best one he ever gave me, and I couldn't beat him, but I came close when I gave him one of my FBI pins for the people that protected the games. So one of the ladies, her daughter, we spoke to her Girl Scout troop, and she was a lawyer for the FBI, so she gave us a whole set of FBI pins. So I was able to pass one of those along. So it's just things like that. And you see people finish that, and they graduate to on different parts of their life, and you get in touch with them later, and lo and behold, they're lawyers and doctors and business people and educators, just like we are. So.
Which games did you participate in?
96 games here in Atlanta, 2,000 games in Sydney, and 2004 games in Greece, Athens, Greece.
And what was your sport?
The actual sport is called athletics, and we call it track and field, but it's athletics. So that encompasses running, jumping, throwing on the track and on the road, things of that nature. And my various events within that discipline was, I like to say, all of them. And I say that because my event was initially the pentathlon, which is half the decathlon. So I did 5 events in one day, and whoever wins the multiple event category in track and field, no matter what disability they have or what gender they have, you get the title of world's greatest athlete in your category. So that's the one I was in. As my brother said, you had to choose the hardest thing, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And also since I did that, I had 5 events. I also did additional events. So one of my events inside the pentathlon was a 100-meter dash. So I qualified as an open sprinter, and then I was on the top 12 in the world doing that. I also qualified open in the discus, and I also did the 4x1 relay and the 4x4 relay. So actually I say I did everything but distance. But you also do the metric mile at the end of the day, so you really do distance as well. And that's what I did in 96 and 2000. I did it in 96, 98 in the World Championships in 2000. I was older and wiser, and so I had moved on to just throwing the discus, which was the event that I excelled at anyway in the pentathlon. And I did that in Sydney and got injured. And in 2004, I threw the discus as well. And in 2004 is when I almost broke the world's record, and I was second best in the world. And I have the injuries to prove it.
Should I say congratulations on that?
And my condolences at the same time, yes.
I do congratulate you, my friend. And thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Not everybody's had a bunch of people clapping for them or cheering for them.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said.
What can you tell me? How does that feel?
It's kind of interesting because the first one, I'll still tell people the high point of my life was coming into Olympic Stadium here in Atlanta in 96, where we came from Fulton County Stadium, the old baseball stadium, to the new one. Coming under the tunnel, there was a choir of 5,000 people, and one of the women in the choir, she was screaming, "They tell me Vincent Martin's here, my cousin's here." I'm like, "What?" And this girl comes running up, she said, "I'm your cousin." And she was in the choir. "I'll see you at the family reunion." I'm like, whoa. And then when we got into the stadium, just the experience of that, a friend of mine said, "We can go home now." The opening ceremony was just so amazing. Totally full, 85,000 people, and I thought that was amazing. But it was the end of the games. I had gotten injured in my open event, and I was in the pentathlon going up to the third event, the 100-meter dash. I was sitting in 4th place, and after that I figured out being second. And so I had a great 100-meter dash, and I went back to the room for the break, took a shower, get something to eat, and came back to do the last two events that evening. And my coach comes up to me and said, "You were disqualified from your 100-meter dash." What? As a guide runner, you can never get in front of their runner. So I ran with a new guide runner that time, and right at the end of the 100-meter dash, he leaned up to make sure I would go in front of him and they could see my hip number. And when he leaned back, I leaned back with him because he let go, he let up. And since we'd never run it before, that ended up allowing me to go in front of him, so I got disqualified even though he wasn't pulling me in any way. So I immediately went from second place to last. And my coach said, "Well, you've read of it happening to other people. It happened to Dan O'Brien, it happened to Bruce Jenner before." And I was like, "I'm okay with that. I have some people I can catch." And we went out there, and over the last two events, I almost won the discus in the rain. And in the 1,500-meter run, I hit a personal best PR by 29 seconds trying to beat a German. So I came back to 5th place from last place. And I was out there for a specific reason. I wasn't sure what it was until the end of the games. And my mother came up to me and said, "I see you achieved your goal at the Paralympics." And I said, "I didn't get a medal." She said, "That wasn't your goal." Like, what? My mother told me, "Your brother's in the stand. He's got 200 friends here helping him, screaming for you. Your father's wearing the same jacket you have on. Your daddy's got the same jacket you have on. They know you're okay now. That's why you did this. You did this to prove to them that you were normal, that you were okay. I was okay before." She was like, "I knew it, but they didn't. And this is how you proved it." Says, "You mean I had to try to be the best athlete in the world just to show them okay?" She's like, "Yes." And I said, "Well, I can quit and go to grad school now." And she said, "Where's the next Paralympics?" And I told her it was in Sydney, Australia. She said, "Well, I'm going to Sydney and it would behoove you to show up." So that's how I kept going. My mother told me to keep going. And because she knew then it was a part of my life, and the whole level of competition is something I would have been upset if I quit doing. It allowed me to keep working full time, keep training full time. My life was that. But the drive, she knew that's what allowed me to be who I am now, being able to keep pushing forward. So that's what I missed the most from the Paralympics, but I am very, 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 very happily retired. Age does that to a person, so I knew when it was time to quit, and I quit.